libgdx does not have like a whole lot of built-in stuff, only like a bunch of very basic stuff. We had to program most of the code ourselves besides just like the geometry for everything's hitboxes. And we also did added a rolling because that's key to any kind of Souls-like game, having the ability to roll with iframes. So we do also have iframes tied into every action you can take has iframes attached to it. Most of them won't actually have, it'll have that value set to 0 when its iframes are. But so like if you do like a parry later down the line, when we add that, that'll have iframes in it, and rolling will have iframes in it. And okay, I can't change. Okay. We also added a buffer system because the game will have you, like in Dark Souls, able to buffer about 3 moves. So if you're in the middle of the roll and you mash roll again, then it'll queue 3 more rolls, and you have to wait for those rolls to complete before you can buffer anything else. What that means is you have to be very deliberate with your inputs. Like you can't just frantically mash something because then that'll get added to the buffer, and you'll have to wait for that input to resolve before you can do anything else. So it makes it like a lot more punishing if you lose your cool and just start hitting buttons. So it makes everything a lot more deliberate. We've also added like an animation handler, which for each state that the player's in, it'll get the appropriate frame for it. So we can now do animations pretty easily once we start adding things into that. We still don't have any like real sprites for the game. We're still using just like random images basically to represent things. So you have nothing pretty to show you in that regard. But we do have the system to handle the animations. And also thanks to Matthew, which I'm sure like most people here have talked to, we have received an amazing soundtrack that we add into our game and we think fits like the mood perfectly. So that's a huge thing. He helped a lot with that because none of us really know how to do music as far as I'm aware. And the things we want to do specifically this week that we're working on is we want to add enemies and add like attacks to the player, because right now the player only has like mobility and rolls and stuff. You can't actually attack. And we want to add enemies using AI trees, because if you ever used AI trees before, it's super nice just like to add like pretty advanced like AIs with multiple things it can do into a pretty simple tree. But it's not just like it makes you can do complicated things, but it's very modular, so it doesn't feel complicated because you can work on it one part at a time instead of trying to do a bunch of like nested like logic statements. And yeah, that's all we really had. We didn't get as much as we would have liked to do done, specifically because fall break and I think a lot of other people went out of town and had other stuff going on. So that kind of slowed us down by a week. But that's what we've done, and that's all I have.
I think next is going to be Chromatic.
I have to download the PowerPoint. It's pretty big. I did not find the chip for it to give.
All right. Awesome. So this is our second update for Chromatic. We've made a couple major design decisions. I think we're just sticking to the green level until everything's operational. We do still have a main level that transitions at the beginning, but we want to put all of our focus onto getting a working level that is smooth gameplay, stuff like that, before we start adding more and more elements. And we're making our character have all the abilities in the first level for now until we start the other levels. That way we can test all of the gameplay. So we have a couple enemies. I'm sorry if it shrinks. I don't know what happened. But currently we have a bunch of working enemies. Just a basic turret. Just in the direction of the character. We have a dragonfly. This is an actual sprite that we have working, but basically it'll fly and then stop and attack you. It just patrols an area and attacks you from the direction you're going. And then we just have a standard warrior. This is a temporary sprite, but it just patrols an area. Currently, all the actual like attacks and abilities work. We just don't have animations for him. So that guy is attacking you. The turret does damage to you. You can actually attack that guy too and kill him. But as of right now, there's no animations that show it, which is something we're working on. All right. So what's next for enemies? The main thing is we got to make the system more fluid with the main character. The health communication between health collisions and stuff like that isn't necessarily flushed out. We've had the enemy design team working on the enemies and the main character team working on the main character. And it's just a matter of communicating now, like how we want to access our scripts, access the variables for health and stuff like that. And then making sure people can't get spammed to death or you can spam abilities and stuff like that. Increasing intelligence, we want to make sure that the enemies, like they're pretty simple for now, but when it comes to having a lot of them or dispersed throughout the level, we want to make sure that they are difficult enough, that they're challenging and intelligent enough where it's not crazy gameplay or just forcing one into a wall or something like that. And then adding the animations and sprites for a couple of them. And then at the end, we want to have a boss. So we're going to begin that starting this week. Our progress, we do have a whole kind of level designed out. We've added a root system, a bunch of logs that are like collidable and you can interact with them. And then a swamp area. If you can see at the bottom here, we do have water that currently rises up as well. So once you beat the level and unlock the blue section, you'll be able to walk back through the level with the water in the way, which we're still working on the water physics, but actually works really well. For character design, we do have a lot of sprites for it. We just have to flush them out. We want to have like modify the combat system, as I've said before, to meet the enemies. Add the dashing and shield ability. Currently, they both have that ability, but we have to like make sure they work with the animations and integrate well with the combat system. And then we have to decide on how we want to do controls, whether it's mouse clicking, what keys we want to do. Because for now, we just basically scatter them across the keyboard. We have a couple gameplay demos. So it starts gray and black. We don't have an actual enemy at the beginning to kill to unlock the color. But for now, you're able to go to the next level. The color will begin to fade into view. And then you'll be able to run around the level. And then, yeah, so moving is pretty smooth. And then we also have like our root system. And then there'll be like log swings and such that you can go across and logs that are interactable. So basically all we have left is I would say about for level design, we just have to fill out the sprites. A couple of trees are just basically expanded versions of the small ones. We want to add vines for the log swings and then have like a backstory background in the background instead of just black. And then this is just a temporary design. We want to make sure that the character can't get stuck in positions, and we want to make sure that like the progress of the game works well. So we're going to redesign the level a little bit. Yeah, so that's about all I have. I think our code is honestly like 80%, 90% there for the first level. It's just a matter of putting it together and communicating between the teams, and then adding a boss at the end. Does anyone have any questions? I go.
I noticed that the game had like, I guess, like kind of a black like blur near the edges. I don't know really how to describe it. It kind of like fades out. Yeah. How do you implement that? Is that just like a image overlaid over the screen, or is you doing that?
So there's a 2D light render in Unity, and basically what we do is we set the whole screen we set them all to like dark, blacked out, and then we have a light that's actually on the main character that illuminates everything around it.
Okay.
You have questions?
No, it's about that.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions?
I thought about something that like games like Celeste do as far as for round tiles. Typically, they'll do like a layer of tiles that are like the ones that you have at the ground, and then they'll kind of dark out everything that's like not on the surface level. Like reduce the amount of information on the screen.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. We haven't really gotten around to that. If you will notice, we've been working more on level design. If you notice, those are the same sprites with just different colors. So we've just been we haven't really focused on that. But if it comes down to like later on in the game when we feel like we've like accomplished like the level design and gameplay, then we'll go down to like the nitty gritty and fix all of that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, for sure. Definitely agree with your point though. Is that it? All
right, so unfortunately, we have a couple announcements as with regards to the other two games. One of them, Project Madmen First Contact. There's no project in the name. I just assume at this point. They are not going to be doing a presentation this time due to lack of progress, although they are still continuing work on the game. As for stop motion, due to some deadline, I believe he said that some deadlines kind of got moved up for his PhD stuff. He is having to stop work altogether on stop motion, unfortunately. But yeah, so for this one, that concludes our project presentations. I don't think we have any other announcements aside from the vote, which we'll do here in just a second. Next week, there's going to be no meeting. We're going to be taking a break because it's the day after Halloween, and I know nobody's going to want to be here. So, yeah, without further ado, I think we're going to go ahead and start talking about the amendment stuff. Do you want to do that, or do you want to just talk about it?
I will say though, any participants in the game jam, we would love it if you guys could stay afterwards. We've got the Torch Technology guy will be running late to the meeting. He's going to be here about 7:30 to do a small photo op. Just so we can get, if they want to do another sponsorship with us again, they have something to show for their progress with Tiger Dev and their collaboration and everything. So other than that, yeah, you go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so as far as this amendment stuff goes is, as we kind of briefly mentioned, we are wanting to basically do a complete overhaul of the club constitution. Just going through it, we think a lot of the stuff in there is stuff that we don't use and doesn't need to be in there. A lot of the stuff that is in there, we don't follow. And there are even some things in there which we think kind of allow for some potential problems. Like there are certain powers given to the officers which we don't really think should be given to them, like the power to, technically speaking, we're allowed to like move people around teams if we want to, which I don't think we should be allowed to do, things like that. Now, it's not just as simple as us like proposing a rewrite to the Constitution, because democracy, we have to first get permission from the club to rewrite the Constitution, which will then present the rewritten Constitution to you for a second vote. It's very complicated, but that's just how electoral systems work. So if you are not a dues-paying member, you can head out. We're done with stuff that involves you. If you are a dues-paying member, however, if you could please just stick behind for a couple minutes, so we can get a vote count on this amendment here.
Every single line. Maybe from the first one. You wanna read the 215 page press one.
Alright,
So much. The paper me go. Actually, that sounds interesting. Plus I could trade back. Plus I could trade back to the back of the discussion.
so I'm just gonna read the proposed amendment here, and then we'll probably just like raise hands and get a count of who all is in favor, who all is against. The proposed amendment reads constitutional rewrites. A constitutional rewrite may be proposed with unanimous consent of the officers. Any potential revised constitution must be approved by a majority vote of the dues-paying membership, and finally be approved by the club advisor before taking effect. If you are in support of this constitutional amendment, please raise your hand. Cool, unanimous.
I'm
Awesome.
voting for it, but I'm voting for it anyway.
Yeah, so
Proceed.
in the next, I guess probably the next meeting, so in 2 weeks, we'll have, I think we're actually going to do this over Discord because it's going to be a longer thing where we want to get like feedback from club members we'll like propose a rewrite and then have like probably a week period where we take criticism and feedback for things to add, change, remove from that new constitution. And then once we've got all of that feedback, we'll propose it for a vote of the club at large, probably on Discord, so we can ensure that we have. Never mind, I'm being glared at by our treasurer. I don't know what that's about, but yeah, so just in the next couple of weeks, keep your eyes up for that. And yeah, that should be it. So everybody but jam participants can leave. I guess jam participants can leave, but we have really, really bad that you don't.
You almost did.
I was gonna say, so we can ensure that we have Jordan. It's not-
Whoa, whoa,
Your voice down.
We do it. No, everything's